Hey, good afternoon, C3. It's Mr. Milne. I am here with another short video to do some math, and then after that, I will follow up with an quiz on Class Dojo. This is something we have not talked about as a whole class. It is multiplying fractions. This will be the last thing we do in fourth grade with fractions. We add and subtract fractions, and for fourth grade, we multiply fractions. Fifth grade's gonna handle the divising fractions and all sorts of stuff. But when we talk about multiplying of fractions, I want to go all the way back to that idea of that multiplication means groups of. Even when we were working on our single digit math facts, I would say things like, what's 3 times 7? And sometimes I would follow up with, what is 3 groups of 7? Right? You're used to thinking of it as an array, 3 rows of 7. And we can do that with our fractions. So I have a question up here that says 5 times 1/3. Well, if we use repeated addition and we think of that as, well, what is 5 1/3? We can just easily turn that into 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3, right? It's 5 1/3, 5 groups of 1/3. And since we know that we have a like denominator here, right? All of our unit fractions are the same, just like we were talking about the other day. What's 5 tacos? What's 5 dogs? What's 5 Mr. Sketch markers? Well, 5 1/3 is just going to be adding them together. So 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3, and 5/3. Which, again, if you wanted to, and to be fancy and to get ready for middle school and 5th grade, you might notice that this is a fraction greater than 1. We used to call these improper fractions. But when that numerator is larger than the denominator, it should be a tip that there might be another way to write that. And how you would write that is, again, kind of going back to that number bond idea. If we know that we're dealing with thirds, well, that means that we have and need 3/3 to make a whole. In this case, well, we have 5/3. So let's decompose that to 3/3, meaning 1 whole, and the 2 more thirds I would have to add to complete. Remember, these 2 bonds make up our total up here. So we could write that as 1 3/3 and 2/3 as our final answer. That is a mixed number. Again, for 4th grade, you will never actually be asked to reduce fractions or to write them as mixed numbers. But again, it's just a good practice to get into for future math concepts. I'm going to switch colors and we'll do another one real fast. This will not be the only technique we will use to multiply fractions. But again, being that we haven't really done this in class, I wanted to go rather slowly and just start with one technique for this morning, and then we'll branch off later on this week and get into some visual models and some other algorithms and techniques to do this. So let's try a different one. How about 7 times 4/5? 7 groups of 4/5. Well, with repeated addition, again, I would just write this as 4/5 plus 4/5 plus 4/5 plus 4/5 plus 4/5. I'm going to run to the other one. Plus 4/5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, that is 7 groups of 4/5, or 7 times 4/5. 4/5 plus 4/5 plus 4/5 plus 4/5 plus 4/5 plus 4/5. And as you know from adding fractions, the denominator never changes, right? We keep that same unit. So we know this is fifths. Well, how many total 4/5 do we have? We have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28 fifths. Going to that same thing as last time, 28 fifths is a little bit unwieldy. If I'm dealing with fifths, I should know, remember going all the way back to our bar models, 1, 2, 3, oh boy, I'm gonna make a bad fist. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5/5. That's gonna be 1 whole. Well, if I have 28 fifths, that means I have 5/5, 10 fifths, 15 fifths, 20 fifths, 25 fifths. I can't go to 30 fifths because I only have 28. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then my last part would be the 3/5. That's that fraction. fractional part that's left over. Let's convert all of these 5/5 to one whole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 and 3/5 is the answer to 7 times 4/5. Like I said before, I will put a few little practice exercises on Class Dojo, but for the first part of multiplying fractions, just think of that as repeated addition. 7 groups of 4/5 is 4/5 plus 4/5 plus 4/5 plus 4/5 plus 4/5 plus 4/5, or 5 times 1/3. So any whole number times a fractional element, just remember to add the fractional element that many times. And then convert it back to a mixed number. Great practice for middle school and beyond. Thanks so much. Your copy of We're Not From Here should be arriving in your mail tomorrow. You should be ready to read up to chapter 5s and 6s. Also, we are going to move from our country reports, which you should be finishing up, to a how-to pamphlet. It's a little bit of instructional writing. We talked about that a little bit before we left. So think about all those things you know how to do super well, especially being that you're at home and I'm sure you're practicing braiding your sister's hair, making ramen, taiko drumming, French, Spanish, all those little things and hobbies and excellent skills that you have. How would you go about kind of teaching somebody that through technical writing? We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but just wanted to give you some updates on what we're going to be doing this week. I hope everyone is well, be safe, have some fun, and I'll talk to you soon.